in terms of the aqidah, the conviction of the people. You know, when you understand the first cause or the initial cause behind it. So aqidah played a great deal, sincerity obviously reflected in action. This was used to address the whole process of change. For so many years, there was stress and emphasis on aqidah. Allahu Akbar, Allah is the greatest. Allah Rabbi, Allah is my Lord. I should not be intimidated by another man because he's just a fellow man. Allah is the one that I should be in fear and awe of, and so on and so forth. That for so many years, this process of tarbiyah, especially by many Salafi movement members, as well as this whole process of tarbiyah for the masses, you know, is given by many other groups such as Ikhwan and other groups and so on and so forth. But the tarbiyah of the masses, this Imam who led this prayer on the bridge in Cairo, prostrated, you know, with everybody else following him, is making a statement, is saying, Allahu Akbar, we are not in fear of your weapons, we are not in fear of your army, we are not in fear of your soldiers, we are not intimidated by you, it's Allah who's going to grant us this victory. That is the statement this man, the Imam, as you come to see him in the video, as well as the people behind him, are saying. Other issues to revive the Izzah of Islam. You know, in Libya, we talked about this on the stage a couple of times, right? We said, Umar al-Mukhtar, you are the sons of Umar al-Mukhtar. Umar al-Mukhtar says, we do not surrender. We either attain victory or we die. The whole idea of, again, the philosophy of Shahada and so on and so forth. Next slide, and we'll go much faster at this point, inshallah. A minute each slide. Again, the idea of the blood of the shaheed would become a curse on the oppressor. These are all part of the whole philosophy of Shahada. Again, the role of Aqidah in Islam. When you talk about these things, I wanted to ask you, what do you do? When you talk about Umar ibn al-Khattab, when you talk about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, when you talk about Umar al-Mukhtar, as an audience, right, what do you do? I'm backing you into a corner to think what? You are living under the rule of Mubarak, you're living under the rule of Gaddafi, you're living under the rule of Bin Ali. And I'm talking to you about all these different things. You know what Umar ibn al-Khattab did, and what am I doing? I'm leaving you with no choice but one single choice. What is it? Protesting why? You're gonna do what? Because I'm talking to you about Umar al-Khattab, but you're living Mubarak, and what are you gonna do? Exactly, you're gonna compare, exactly. This is how it's supposed to be. You know, Umar ibn al-Khattab, since when have you taken people into this slavery and their mothers have given them, you know, their life as free men? That's what Umar ibn al-Khattab said, and so on and so forth. Umar al-Mukhtar, I leave you with no choice, I back you into a corner. You have no choice but to compare what it should be and what it is. And you're not satisfied, are you? You're not, because it's not supposed to be like this. We talked about a few of these things. Social media needs lots of emphasis, but it does play a great role. A great role. You know, we have, you know, satellite channels anytime on my BlackBerry. I get Al Jazeera right now, English and Arabic, and so on. Very, very important. Next slide. Grievances, as we mentioned, in Tunis and other places and so on. But that was the spark of many revolutions. If you draw a comparison to the French Revolution, you see that the whole prison of Bastille, you know, that people in prison stripped of their rights and so on and so forth. These people in Libya were shot cold blood, massacred, 1,200 people, 12 years ago. And for so many years, their families go and protest and raise their pictures. I wanted to show you other things, but just for the sake of time, people will go on Corniche, Iskandariya, on this, you know, the coastal road, and then, you know, the Nile Corniche in Egypt, in Cairo, and they will go and they have these silent protests. They would face the water, and they're back to the people, and they have silent protests, and they make dua. You want to read something from the Bible, you want to read something from the Quran, you want to read something, but take a stand. You know, protest in one way or another. Go ahead. This is the very last slide. There are other issues as well, socioeconomic and so on and so forth. But I want to highlight and emphasize one thing. The cause of this is not the fact that people are not able to feed their their children, even though that is a very compelling fact. That is a major grievance, obviously. I have 3 kids. If I'm unable to feed them, unable to take care of them, I feel awful. It's just not what a father should be doing. You know, and these families, they endured and they went through all these difficulties. But for so long, for as long as Muslim history existed, the Muslims were not, you know, in major grievances or rioting in the streets or whatever because shortage in food or things like this. It's when these 2 things happen at the same time. The fact that you're unable to make a living, unable to earn, you know, this rizq or sustenance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, given by Allah, the fact that you're unable to earn this, and that is mixed with humiliation. You know, you are willing to sacrifice, you're willing to do your part, but you're blocked even at this point from doing what you're supposed to do as a man. That is a very important factor. You know, the fact that Bouazizi wanted to work, but he was even denied that opportunity to provide for his family because of the corruption that took place. Failure to protect minorities, obviously the Copts in Egypt is a very good example. It's a fard, Islam says, a fard, an obligation on the majority Muslims to protect the minority of all religions. The Prophet ﷺ especially gives, the Quran gives special status to the people of the book, Ahlul Kitab, and Dhimmiyin. The Prophet ﷺ says that he's going to be the prosecutor of the one who's going to commit dhulm or oppression against the person who has covenant with the Prophet ﷺ, namely Ahlul Kitab and Dhimmiyin. Very important. Failure on the majority, on behalf of the majority, protect the minority, led to a lot of turmoil. Framing the argument is extremely important, and I'll end with these 2 points really quick. Framing an argument was done with perfection in the case of Egypt and Tunisia, and to a great deal in Libya at this point. What is framing the argument? The West, namely you know, Britain and France and other places, the US obviously, all the administrations of these different countries in the West, as well as the media. The media controls a great deal, you know, really rules certain countries. A good example of it is this country. If you get to frame the argument, you say this is about democracy, this is about human rights, this is about justice and social justice, this is about these things. If you get there first, and you take this initiative, and do not let the others respond, have this reactionary response, instead of them dictating the course of action, you most likely will come out winning. Here is what Ma'arif, which is an Israeli paper, said. In this research think tank, they said 5.5% of Egyptians use Facebook. So, you know, don't exaggerate the whole idea of, like, you know, media and social media and stuff. 95% of them, they believe in some sort of role for Islam to play. 45% of them are illiterate, so it's premature for them with this whole democracy. There's something else. There's, you know, this whole, you know, other Islamists on the rise. There are conspiracy theories and so on and so forth. 40% of them live under poverty, so these are just poor people who are coming out to the streets because they want a better living. That is the whole. It's not necessarily because of, you know, the human rights. It's not necessarily because you want to be represented. It's not because of all these things. But the people did a great job in framing the argument. They defined the terms of the revolution, and these guys ended up being marginalized, ended up being sidelined by default. That is a very strategic and very important thing that took place. Alhamdulillah, I was inspired very much by this whole thing that took place to start writing, I think, inshallah, a very good paper of, I think, of good value about Islam and democracy. I'll end with this, inshallah, for a minute. Islam and democracy is a very important topic. It's going to be the topic of the hour. People are going to have to make better understandings for themselves, how Islam relates to democracy and so on and so forth. I'll just scratch the surface, just give you an example and end with that. Obviously, the whole issue of democracy, there's an outcry on the streets of the Arab capitals because of demands for democracy and so on. And many people would come to say, is it that you want Islam or you want democracy, and that is definitely the wrong question to ask. Islam is a complete system of life, as we all know. It tells us what to do, it tells us how to behave, it tells us what to think, our convictions. We have a whole system. Yes or no? Right? So Islam, يدخل في السلم كافة, in its totality, entirety, and so on. So that is our understanding. That comprehensive nature of Islam should not be compared to one of the means of civil government, which is democracy. So that's one of the means, one aspect of what civil government is supposed to be. There's a great deal of overlap, make no mistake about it. Yes, in that the kind of democracy that these people are asking for is not the same democracy that is taking place right here in the US and other places. It's not the democracy that allows for, you know, any sort of corruption from Islamic perspective. You know, so the whole idea of, you know, all the examples. So anything that will constitute corruption in Islam would not be the kind of democracy that these people, if the majority agrees, it's not necessarily correct. It's not necessarily how things are supposed to happen. So there's a great deal of overlap, but it's limited. It's framed. There are, you know, certain guidelines to it. I will end with this. The best thing that these revolutions did is what? Moral high ground. Say it with me. Moral high ground. This is what these people did. Moral high ground. They protected the moral high ground. They raised a very high flag by being peaceful, by being non-violent. Obviously, in the case of Libya, they have to defend themselves. You saw a great deal of violence here. Yes, you did, but again, these people are protecting their lives, protecting themselves. They're being, you know, brutally attacked. But at all times, they said it's non-violent. They said, we are the people. We own the streets. These are our streets. We're protesting peacefully. That is very, very important in order to further frame the argument. With this, inshallah, I would end. We talked about the brutality and the killings. Obviously, the more brutal and the more, you know, there's genocide taking place right now in Libya. But again, the whole philosophy of Shahada, the steadfastness, all these values of Islam, and all these convictions that a person is, you know, taught from a very young age come to play when they are out there on the streets, when they're ready to sacrifice everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised them, you know, that shuyukh, they go online and different places and they say, these are shuhada and so on and so forth. What is a better outcome for a Muslim is to die for a just cause. And the hadith of Prophet ﷺ and many, many things to mention. There's a whole chapter in Bukhari that talks about the whole value of Shahada and so on. So very, very important. Yes, there's philosophy of Shahada, but the moral high ground was never lost. People protected that and guarded it, even at times when others came. So with this, inshallah, I will end. I skipped a couple of things. I apologize because of just for the sake of time, I wanted to rush it, but I don't want to stop short of giving you an opportunity to ask any questions, even make a comment, or, you know, I'd be very happy to clarify anything that perhaps was unintentionally missed. So if anybody has any questions, I'll take those. In the meantime, it's important for all of us. Yes? Go ahead. Should I? No, it's okay. Just repeat the question. I can repeat the question, John. Who said that?